What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here in our normal locations this time for UFC Vegas 76 best bets, DFS picks, line of advice, FanDuel, DraftKings, Sean Strickland, Abus Magomedov. I know a lot of people were surprised when this match was announced, but it's finally here, and we're going to break it down. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, joined by Jake the Snake, owner of MMA DFS.com. Jake, what's up, man? Good to see you again.
Yeah, man. Good to be back. Sorry you only won 50 grand last week. Could have been better. Could have been worse.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I am eternally more grateful now than I was on Saturday. For those of you who missed it, Moose and I did a recap of the live final, the DraftKings MMA World Championship. It's here on the YouTube channel, so make sure you go back and check that out after you watch this video when you get some time this weekend. Here, if you're new, what we do, we break down the main event, betting DFS perspective. We talk about any newcomers. There are 3 this week making their Octagon debut, what their outlook is for DFS. We give some context to fighters that have less than 4 fights in the UFC. So we call it good fighter, bad fighter, good matchup, bad matchup. It really helps contextualize some of the stats and game logs that you see on DraftKings. And then we'll give out a fight that you have to target in DFS, our favorite prize picks play, and our stream parlay of the week. So let's jump into it. Now, Jake, Sean Strickland, 1 billion fights. Abus Magomedov, 19 seconds of cage time in the last 3 years or so. Talk to me about this matchup. Talk to me about the line moves. What can we expect? What do we not know? And how do you think it plays out for betting and DFS?
Yeah, man. Pretty crazy, right? The dude literally has 19 seconds, a bus that is a boost, whatever. 19 seconds of cage time since 2020. So I can only imagine this guy's been in a German lab somewhere hooked up to a bunch of machines as he gets pumped full of who knows what. Because somebody knows he's ready for this fight, and it's definitely not the public. But pretty interesting matchup, I guess. We got Strickland. Basically, we all know what we're getting at Strickland now. We're getting crazy rants, and we're getting 5-round decisions. That's what Strickland does.
Yep.
4 of his last 5 fights have gone the full 25 minutes. He won 3 of those. Arguably should have won all 4. Scoring really well, averaging 118 DraftKings points, 134 points on FanDuel in those 3 wins. Dude's been crushing it, just pure volume, super consistent, just really tight window of how many strikes he lands in these fights. And he's constantly putting up 150 to 180-ish strikes and just tons of volume. Really good takedown defense. Could be useful here because Magomedov, obviously, he was born in Dagestan, lived there until he was 15, learned to wrestle there, and then moved to Germany as a teenager. Focused more on his striking at that point since no one knows how to wrestle in Germany. Both guys are 32 years old. I think everyone has the same reaction when they saw the matchup. Why is this guy getting a main event? He beat Dustin Stoltzfus in 19 seconds, and now he's going straight to a main event against a ranked opponent. So anytime you get everyone having the same reaction, it's kind of like, yeah, there's something fishy going on that, it's not public information. So who knows? I mean, someone knows that this guy is either ready or there's a reason they're giving him, this main event spot opposed to giving him a couple more fights first. That's anyone's guess. But I think the guy is dangerous. I think that he's a finisher. He's got a ton of finishes in the first 2 rounds. Only 4 of his 30 pro fights have lasted longer than 10 minutes. So we don't know what his cardio is really like because I think he hasn't been past the 7-minute mark since 2018. So really hard to know where he's at right now cardio wise. And he's never been past the 3rd round. So if this does get to the championship rounds, how's he going to look then? And that's a mystery that we'll find out maybe on Saturday if the fight lasts that long. But I think it's either going to be, Strickland's going to take over in the championship round, land a ton of volume, score well once again, or Magomedov's going to come out and kind of shock everyone and finish the super durable Sean Strickland, who has been knocked out in the first round in 2 of his last 3 losses. But I mean, it's Alex Pereira and Dos Santos on that spinning wheel kick, and that was down at 170. So Strickland's only been knocked out once at 185. I think it's going to be interesting, man. We could see chaos. We could see Magomedov get a knockout. Personally, I still think a Strickland decision is the most likely outcome. That would score well on both sides. And if it doesn't happen, it's probably because he gets finished, which would also score well on both sides for Magomedov. So the winner should score well in high-risk contests. Low risk, I think we just need to accept the fact that every main event until the end of time is going to go 5 rounds and is going to combine for 200 points, regardless of it's, Topuria or whoever. They're all going 5 rounds from now on, unless we get a heavyweight fight. That might be the one exception.
And it will still happen.
So, yeah, right. John Jones, Cyril Gane rematch goes 5 rounds, scores 300 points.
Oh man! All right, so well summarized there, Jake. And the line has moved a bit in Abus's favor, right?
Yeah, it did. I want to say like Strickland opened the week at like -175. I need to double check. Yeah, -175 on Monday. He got down to -135 at one point, and then everyone was like,
What's going on?
okay, there needs to be some pushback here. So now it's at -150 at the book I'm looking at. So it's kind of been going back and forth. Kind of crazy, man. Really surprising that line was getting bet down, considering how limited, fight time that Magomedov has recently. So it's just, I guess, people betting on the unknown, man. It's pretty wild considering how durable Strickland has been.
For sure. And just a little credit to Magomedov. It's not like he's some guy who has 6 pro fights and hasn't fought anybody, right? He's fought in other high level organizations, like you said, has 30 or so pro fights. So clearly has a high level of competition for the most part, given most other fighters who have one fight in the UFC. So, and I think the UFC is trying to fast track some of these guys in this division. We see the Iskram fight against Paulo Costa, right? And the same type of reaction from the average UFC fan. So either way, this looks like an interesting matchup. Should score well in DFS no matter who wins. And on a 12-fight card, I'd imagine, Jake, that it's pretty tough for this fight to get left out. Obviously, it's it can happen all the time, but probably one of the tougher fights to get left out.
Yeah, the pricing is kind of mid-range. Like if we had one guy that was like, 9,300, it would be easier for that guy to get left out. But yeah, I mean, Strickland's 8,500 on DraftKings, $19 on FanDuel. I think at pretty reasonable prices, I think it's hard for him to get left out, and for sure hard for Magomedov to get left out with a finish there. I will say, man, Magomedov got knocked out in 33 seconds for the PFL $1 million against Lewis Taylor. That guy never fought again. He was pretty old. That's a little bit of a knock on Magomedov's chin, but we'll see. Strickland's not really finishing anybody, so.
Well, people can fold under pressure for $1 million. We've seen it time and time again in PFL. So Magomedov is no different. So, all right, we're breaking down the main event. Let's talk about the 3 newcomers making their UFC debut. We'll start from the first fight of the night down to the last fight of the night. First one against Luana Carolina is Ivana Petrovic.
I mean, 29-year-old, 6-0, 5 finishes. She's been fighting in France. She's coming off a couple late round submissions for the Aries belt over there. Decent grappler, still really green in terms of striking, looks pretty hittable. She'll let her hands go, but man, the striking defense, I just don't really see it being there. I think that's going to be her biggest concern in the UFC. And potentially they're bringing her on a little early before she can kind of fix some holes in her game. So we'll say she's not super young, but she's still super early in her career. She only turned pro a couple of years ago. Pretty good size at 5'8". I think, when she can get her grappling going, she's going to look good. And when she can't, she's going to look bad.
Fair enough. Which could go either way in this matchup against Carolina. True or false? She should not be undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably true. We've seen her get dropped multiple times. So any of those could have easily been losses or knockouts.
I thought the one decision, and I thought the commentators in the fight were, well, it was a good moral victory in the 3rd round. I don't think she'll pull this out. And then she won the split decision. So bad judging is bad everywhere. So either way,
yeah, that's true.
Wide range of outcomes, I think, for Petrovic. So moving on, we have just easily the worst fighter on the card. And I would say Mike Jackson level. Shout out Mike Jackson. Big fans of Mike Jackson on the show. For services in exchange for UFC fight time, right? Mike Jackson, part-time photographer, part-time fighter. Wilson, part-time software or something, you said, Jake? I don't know. Talk to me about this guy, what his background is, and what he's even doing here.
Yeah, so he's a 34-year-old software product manager, and he also owns his own software company.
Time out. Normally it's like...
do an interview.
Just really quickly, time out. Every time I throw it to you for one of these guys, 29-year-old kickboxer from Thailand, 34-year-old grappler from Germany. No, this guy's a 34-year-old software manager, like you're reading his LinkedIn resume. All right, continue. Sorry.
I mean, that's basically what I'm doing. But, so in the interview that I was telling you to check out, this guy's literally talking about how he used to trade software. He would give it to fight promotions for free, so they would let him fight on the cards. And it's just wait, what?
Yeah, what?
That's how you got on these cards? You were okay. sick. And then he was like, yeah, like I told my mom a long time ago I was never gonna let fighting be my main like source of income. Like basically it's a hobby for him. I mean, it's just everything he said, it was just like a red flag flying out of his mouth. But the guy's 16-7, coming in on short notice, trains with Wonder Boy, which is probably the reason he's getting the call here. Wonder Boy's boy, similar karate style stance. He's tall. That's about all he has going for him. I mean, he's primarily a grappler, no striking defense. He's been fighting a lot of low level competition, and when he has faced like even a slight step up, he's just gotten mauled.
Yep.
It seems like he's walking into a complete murder here. And Brito could do whatever he wants in this fight. Like this guy could get subbed, he could get knocked out, he could get ugly really fast. If we want to get into conspiracy narratives, at face-offs today, Weston Wilson handed Brito some sort of note. I can only assume it said one of two things.
Okay.
It either said, "Don't kill me, they're holding my family hostage and forcing me to fight," or "Don't kill me, I'm holding your family hostage and you'll never see him again if you kill me." I mean, what else do you like? It's not going to be like, "Hey, how's it going, buddy?" Like,
Yeah.
what do you hand a note to someone for?
It was actually just a bet slip of under a half a round plus 190, which is a great bet this week, by the way.
I mean, God, I hope so.
I mean, and again, his level of experience and talent is represented in the line. Brito is what now, Jake? What's the money line there?
Depending on where you look, it's like negative 1,400 to like negative 1,600 or something. Last I looked.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right, so we have that fight to look forward to, and we damn well know that I will be overweight on Weston Wilson, the creative fighter. Finally, we have, remind me of his first name, Jake, Ruziboev. Nursultan Ruziboev, a billion fights, from my experience, tries to throw a Kimura in literally every single fight. But what did you see? What kind of fighter is he? What's his outlook here?
Yeah, I'm glad you said the name so I didn't have to. 29 years old. Guy has a million fights. He's 34, 8, and 2. Like, how do you have 44 fights in your 20s? But
Right.
guy just fights all the time, stepping on short notice. He's from Uzbekistan, but he trains in Philly at Renzo Gracie with a bunch of UFC grapplers. Andre Petrosky, Pat Sabatini, Sean Brady, Jeremiah Wells. Like, all those guys are in the same room with him. And he hasn't fought in like 15 months now. So maybe he's improving. Like he's super tall and rangy, so he's kind of got like good frame for the division. So if he can, his biggest issue has been his takedown defense. Like his answer for everything is Kimura. So if he's been able to work on his takedown defense in that like strong grappling room in Philly, I think that could improve his game a lot. Because right now it's like, oh, you're gonna get taken down, go for a Kimura. Oh, someone's gonna punch you, go for a Kimura. Like everything's a Kimura with this guy. Like it's just all Kimuras, which that doesn't work in the UFC. Like how many Kimura finishes do we see? We see Kimura sweeps. We see people use it to gain positions, but it's pretty rare to see a finish by Kimura. So I think this guy, it's kind of like if you're like cheating on the low level and you're doing something that works, but you never learn the right habits.
Right.
I kind of feel like that's what he's been doing with the Kimura. But we'll see. It's been long enough since he's fought. Maybe he'll look better. I thought he looked a little bit stronger today at weigh-ins than he had in the past, but man, his takedown defense is terrible, and that's not what you want in a matchup against a guy that looks to get people to the ground and maul them on the mat in Ferreira. So I think it's a tough matchup. Obviously, stepping up on short notice is tough. I don't know. I mean, the guy has so much experience, and he's still so young and he's training with a good team that maybe he'll surprise us. But I don't have very high expectations for him.
Yeah, I think Ferreira has a huge upside across from him. He'll be extremely popular, but we do have the upside of the unknown here. So, and if you're watching this fight with some friends, you want to impress them, or you want to try to hustle them for some money, throw out that you're going to see some Kimuras from Ruziboev, and I'm sure you'll impress them. So, all right, Jake, good fighter, good matchup, bad matchup for those fighters with 4 fights or less in the UFC under their belt. You're going to tell me if they're good or bad, is if this is a good or bad matchup. Before we get to that, if you're watching this, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. It's free to do. You get notified whenever we go live, upload any videos here on YouTube, and give us a thumbs up. That lets us know to keep making these videos, helps others find these videos. Really, it's the best way for you to show your support. So give us that thumbs up. We appreciate it. All right, Jake, from the bottom to the top, we have, so Carolina has a bunch of fights. It is Elvis Brenner Oliveira, Elvis Oliveira, depending on the API that you use. So Elvis, good or bad? This is a good or bad matchup against Kutat Latse, who, by the way, only has 2 fights in UFC too, so you can talk about him as well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with Elvis. I think it's obviously a terrible matchup. I don't think he's good. I mean, I'm not gonna say the guy's terrible. Like he seems sort of like average, but I'm not gonna call him good. And I think it's a really terrible matchup.
Meanwhile, Kutat Latse is really good. I assume you'll think, and this is probably a good matchup.
Yeah, I just assumed that everyone knew what the deal was. Kudaladzej is violent. He is really good. Trains with Hamzat, and I do think it's a good matchup. I think people are going to look at the records here and not realize how good a matchup it is because Elvis has never been finished, but most of his career was spent at 145 pounds. While Kudaladzej, I don't think I'm saying that name right, but
Garam.
um, yeah, I think I left out a vowel. Guram. He's fought to 2 decisions, but he's fought Gamrot and Ismagulov. Like, could you ask for 2 tougher matchups? Like, both guys came in on like 15 to 19 fight winning streaks, having never been finished. Those are your first 2 fights in the UFC, and you go 1-1. And honestly, both fights could have gone either way. He could be 2-0, he could be 0-2. 1-1's probably fair with that in mind.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, he could fight at 170 if he wanted to. I think he made his pro debut at 170, so I think he's going to be the bigger fighter, like bigger than the numbers suggest. And I think it's a sneaky good matchup, despite Elvis having never been finished in the past.
I will say this, just a quick synopsis of what Jake wrote in the plug, what he wrote on his site, is that it's not very often you get a minus 700 favorite or so, who's basically a coin flip to end it inside the distance, who has fought the toughest matchups possible, gets a huge step down in competition, is going to be relatively low owned because the fighter's priced around him. I mean, that's what GPP dreams are made of, Jake. I don't want to put too much on it, but it's really, as contrarian GPP players, it is, you can't find a much better spot, dude.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, man. Like, yep.
And
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, yeah. Yeah,
I'm
that's
not the
why I
live
wrote it in
final
there.
this week, so we can be a little more transparent in some of our takes. So hammer Guram here in this matchup. All right, moving on. We talked about Weston Wilson. We talked about his opponent Britsu a little bit, who has 3 fights in the UFC. Just quickly, good or bad? Obviously, it's a good matchup.
Yeah, I think Bruno's good. His one issue is his cardio. The guy goes so hard early on that he kind of gasses out later on in fights, but I don't think that matters in this matchup.
Uh,
Best matchup you could ask for.
for sure. All right, what about Rinat Fakhretdinov against UFC veteran, now back in the promotion, Kevin Lee?
Yeah, man, I think Renat's good, man. I know like people kind of hated on him when he came in because he was so one-dimensional, but the guy just wins. Like I mean, what is he on? 19 fight winning streak? The guy just wins fights. It is a tough matchup against Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee is another wrestler, good takedown defense. But Kevin Lee is also like all of his success has been at 155 pounds, and Renat was fighting at 185 pounds until he got to the UFC. I think the size difference is going to be the key factor here that maybe not everyone's accounting for. I mean, they're really 2 weight classes apart. So I don't think it's like the worst matchup ever, but it's definitely a tough matchup. So I'm still calling it a bad matchup for Renat. But
So
I think he's a good fighter.
certainly a tougher matchup than his debut against Andres Mihailidis. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so we talked about Ruzi Boev making his debut. His opponent Bruno Fajeda got the impressive knockout against Gregory Rodriguez, who fights like an idiot. But is Bruno good? Undefeated? Is he good? And is this a good matchup against Ruzi Boev?
I think he's good. I think he's one of these all offense fighters. We haven't seen him get extended in the fight, so potentially he has bad cardio. And maybe if he fights someone that's not as dumb as Gregory Rodriguez, they'll actually fight him smart and force him to go into the later rounds. But from what we've seen from him, he's good. I mean, he's powerful on the feet. He'll get people down. He'll land heavy ground and pound. We haven't really seen him face a ton of adversity yet. So maybe a few different fights down the road, we will not be calling him good. But as of right now, based on the evidence we have in front of us, I think he's a good fighter and a good matchup.
Fair enough. All right, moving on. We have 2 fighters with less than 4 fights under their belt. Benoit Saint Denis, who has 3 fights. Ismail Bonfim, just a crazy knockout win his debut against Terrence McKinney. Are these fighters good or bad? And is it a good or bad matchup for either?
I mean, I think both guys are good, but I think that kind of makes it a tough matchup because they're both solid. I think both guys are going to be hard to finish. I think some people are going to look at Bonfim's record and see that he has 3 submission losses. and then realized that good old Saint Denis is a submission guy. Benoit Saint Denis, excuse me, sir. But I think what you have to factor in is all of Bonfim's submission losses came when he was like 15 and 18 years old, and the last of those came against Moicano.
Oh wow.
When Moicano was like in his mid-20s and Bonfim was like an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to give him a pass on all those sub losses. Since then, he's gotten way better at grappling. He's a BJJ black belt now. And then, if you look at like post 18, the guy's basically never lost a fight. So I think he's really good. I think his brother's good. I think both guys are well rounded. And then both Bonfims are well rounded, I should say. I think Benoit, his biggest issue is his striking defense. We saw that in his debut where he almost died inside the octagon. The referee clearly bet on that fight to go the distance. I think that referee gets sent to the gulag after. I've not seen him since.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Benoit is good, but he's a good grappler. The striking defense just isn't there, and I think that Bonfim is going to be able to take advantage of that. But I also kind of think it goes the distance. Both guys are super durable, so I think both guys are good, but it's a bad matchup probably for both guys. But you could definitely argue that Benoit absorbs so much damage that Bonfim could put up a huge striking number.
Fair enough. And if we just expunge Bonfim's juvenile record as an adult, he's undefeated. So,
right.
All right, closing it out here, we have two more to talk about. We have Melissa Gatto, who we haven't seen in over a year. Maybe some people forgot how good she could be in DFS, my opinion. Good or bad? Good or bad matchup versus Lipsky?
Yeah, man, they forgot to.
That's why they pay the big bucks, Jake.
I think she's good, man. She impressed us in her debut, albeit against Victoria Leonardo, who is terrible and broke her arm or breaks her arm every time she fights. But then she got the win over Sajara Eubanks, which I think was a good win, and then she almost beat Tracy Cortez. Ends up losing a decision there, but it's pretty close. But you look at she keeps facing wrestlers and grapplers. Give this woman a striker so she can really show off her submission skills. And they're finally doing that with Lipsky here. So I think it's a great matchup. I think Gatto's a good fighter. I mean, she's still primarily a submission threat, but her striking's improved a lot if you go back and watch her old regional tape compared to her UFC fights. Probably helps that she took a couple of years off in between those. But I think she's good, man. I think she's solid, and I really like her this week, and I think it's a great matchup.
For sure. And finally, we have Michael Morales, 2 fights in the UFC. Both relatively easy wins, and he's facing Max Griffin. Good or bad fighter? Good or bad matchup?
Yeah, big step up in competition. I think he's good. I think he leaves his chin up. Potentially going to get caught one of these days. And Max Griffin is a power puncher who's also really durable. I think it's a bad matchup. I think Griffin's good. I think his one issue is he has bad cardio. So he basically always wins the first round. Second round's close. Loses the third round. Goes to split decision. Probably what happens again here. But yeah, so I think good fighter, bad matchup.
Fair enough. Hence one of your split decision bets in the plug, perhaps. So let's close out the show here with a fight that you have to target in DFS. Jake's favorite prize picks play and our stream parlay of the week. Quickly, Jake, as we drag on here, fight that you have to target. Whoever wins is very likely to score extremely well. No easy fights you can pick.
All right, this is the spot in the stream where people leave the live stream or whatever. they close their laptop. These guys don't know what they're talking about. I think the fight that you want to target is Carol Hossa and Yana Santos.
Love it.
But I think you only want to target it on DraftKings because I think we're going to see a ton of clinch time, potentially takedowns from Hossa, and a lot of clinch strikes, but probably not a lot of significant strikes. So it's one of these fights that could score 100 points on DraftKings and 40 points on FanDuel.
Yeah, obviously I am partial to Yana Santos, who helped me with a GPP win in that matchup against Ketlin Vieira, who I thought she lost the fight, but she scored 62 fantasy points without the win bonus because of all the insignificant strikes she was landing, some of the clinch time. So you may look at 2 female fighters, you see it's favored to go the distance, but these 2 can rack up DraftKings points in particular. So I really like that call, Jake. All right, prize picks. You see promo code here on screen, Occupy. Use promo code Occupy to get a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. Nothing better than getting free money and using it on some prop parlays. Jake, you've been crushing it most of the year. Which line stands out to you the most this week on prize picks?
Yeah, there's multiple that I like, but I'm going to give out Melissa Gatto over 82.5 points. I think she gets there in a win. There's always a slight chance in a low volume decision win. She doesn't get there, but I like her to get the finish. I think she's probably going to get submission attempts, which those count for 5 points on prize picks. I think that line's definitely low. I think she probably clears 100. So yeah, Gatto over 82.5 points on prize picks.
Good call, and it's always important to remember the scoring rules. Takedown defense on prize picks as well as and they still have that, right, Jake, the takedown defense?
Yep, yep.
So takedown defense, not for this fight in particular, but in general, and then submission
Right.
attempts as well, certainly adds to the floor and ceiling. All right, stream parlay. I give a prop. Jake gives a prop. We parlay it together. We buy Lambos. Jake, I will say for me this week, we talked him up enough. It's the theme of the week. The dream GPP spot is Kutaladze. I'm going to go him by KO. I believe it's plus 125, which again, plus 125 KO for a low owned, expensive fighter. Come on, man. We got to do it. So that's my side.
Yeah, and I think that looks especially good when you look at his negative 700 money line.
Yes. Yes. Agree.
All right. Well, to make this more of a Kia parlay as opposed to a Lambo parlay, I'm going to go Melissa Gatto by submission at plus 270. Just staying on that Gatto train. We'll see if it backfires, but the parlay will be plus set.
Never backfires when you're super heavy on someone. You know that, right?
Never. I've never talked someone up on this show and had them not succeed. So let's just keep that 100% efficiency rate going. Plus 733 on the parlay.
Sounds good. Plus 733 on the parlay. You guys jump on board with us, ride with us. You can sweat it out in Discord with us, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. You can ask any final questions. Watch the fights with us in there. Sweat the fights with us. We love having you in there, talking about the fights as they go along. Check out Jake's work at MMADFS.com. He has the sheet, which he does every single week, breaks down every fight from a betting and DFS perspective. He has his premium content as well. In addition to that, gives out early bets, late bets throughout the week. You don't want to miss it. The archive, historical DFS data, great resource, MMADFS.com. Go check it out. OccupyFantasy.com. Jake comes over there on Fridays, writes the daily plug, his favorite plays, favorite bets, lineup construction tips, more prize picks plays, everything you need. Slate roadmap. Our Occupy model ranks every fighter, FanDuel, and DraftKings with Jake's projected ownership. Everyone in the industry is starting to use it. You'd be surprised at the names on our list that use it. We'll keep that a secret between us and them. And our lineup builder allows you to build up to 300 lineups on FanDuel and DraftKings. So for Jake at DFS_MMA on Twitter, I'm at Brian Jester FF. Good luck at UFC Vegas 76.